Welcome back to Takacs McGinnis Elder Care Law Hour. I'm Barbara McGinnis, and in this segment we're talking about financial exploitation, fraud, scams, especially those that target seniors.
And I'm Tim Takacs, and we talked about financial exploitation and fraud in our previous segment. But what about other scams that law enforcement is seeing? So with us today to talk about this topic is Sergeant Henry Particelli with the Madison Precinct Community Affairs. Welcome, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, so what types of scams are you and your team seeing in Middle Tennessee?
We're seeing so many different versions of what's going on, and some of it's been going on for a long time, but some of them are newer and more sophisticated than others. I think most of them these days are going over the telephone. Obviously, it's just so easy to solicit over the phone, and unfortunately, the no-call list is kind of off the, it's not doing its job like we would have hoped it would. My phone probably rings 15 times a day from some number that I don't know. A lot of them are similar to mine, whatever the case may be. Right. But we're getting calls where folks are, particularly with the elderly, they'll prey on the fact that maybe they're lonely, maybe they need someone to talk to, they'll get engaged in conversation. And it's funny when you engage in conversation, the things you can draw out of people. They'll call and tell them that they have a grandson or a granddaughter and went to Florida for spring break, and they're incarcerated and they need bail money, and of course we all have that one child that they can go, oh, that's probably Johnny.
That's probably Johnny.
So they'll be like, Johnny? Yeah, Johnny, that's who it is. And
right.
they'll go ahead and talk about Johnny getting in a little bit of trouble, and we need $500, and if you can just send it, go to Western Union or any, not to single out any particular type of industry, but basically it's usually they're asking them to wire or gift cards or things like that, and that's how they're going to get little Johnny out of trouble. So it's just important to verify what's actually going on. Call the family, talk to them. Don't just give up money unknowingly, realizing that you're not giving it to the right person or for the right reason.
Even if you know it's probably Johnny, you might as well call Johnny's mother.
Yeah, call Johnny first. Make sure you
call Johnny or his mother.
See how he's doing.
Exactly, exactly. There's so many of them like that though, and they're just a lot of it is based on fear. They're going over the IRS, using that as a typical, you owe us money, we're going to come, or maybe you had a traffic violation several years ago and now we're going to come after you, we have a warrant, a civil warrant after you, or criminal warrant, and they're trying to get you to spend money that way or send money that way. And so it's just, if people are asking for money for something, take your time and verify that it is something that you need to be doing. They're not going to call you, IRS isn't going to call you and ask for money. Right. The police department, the fire department, they're not going to call you and ask you for a donation. I get those calls, they'll say they're going to buy me better equipment. Well, they're going to buy police better equipment. I'll be like, well, that's fantastic, I'm a police officer, I'd love
and then it's like,
yeah, that call ends pretty quickly after that. So.
Right.
And I think it's a lot of us on cell phones, if there's a number we don't recognize, especially if it's from out of state or far away, you go, I don't know anybody in
New Jersey or wherever,
and I'm not going to answer that. But the ones where they're calling from a similar number or a local number, now those seem to be the ones that kind of hook people in.
I think so. Yeah. It'll look a lot similar to your own number, even.
Right.
I'd say maybe the same first three numbers, sorry, and whatnot. And so you're thinking, oh, this must be a Verizon carrier or Sprint carrier, whoever your carrier is, but thinking that it is local, and the fact it isn't.
So, yeah. Is there anything more about that we should know?
There is. There's a lot of, unfortunately, technology is our best friend, but it's also our worst enemy in some cases. And looking at this situation, there's a lot of apps for telephones now. The smartphones are great, but you can actually, and it's not just apps, it's computers that they're using, but they can generate, I can make a phone call from any number in the United States and lead you to believe that that's who's calling you. So I can find the IRS phone number and call you and use
so it
their
mimics
number.
The IRS.
So your caller ID will show that it's the IRS, is actually a legitimate number. While I can make that phone call and trick you that way, I can't intercept their calls. So the best way to get around that, obviously, is to, or if they're just even saying they're a family member or a friend or whatever, they may call real quickly and say they're filling out a loan application, they need the last 4 of your social or whatever. Whatever the case may be, you get that information or whatever. get off the phone with them and call that number back, because I can't intercept those numbers. I can only make the outgoing calls.
Gotcha.
So if you think it's something sounds fishy or whatever, it probably is, number one. But number two, call the number back and verify who you were talking to, because it will go back to the proper person.
It sounds like the lesson here is if you don't know the caller personally, you don't recognize them.
Don't recognize the voice.
Then you ask for their number or call that number back and
make an excuse if you have to. If you don't, a lot of people don't want to be rude, and I get that. That's how I was raised too. But just tell them, hey, look, I've got to go, but I'll call you back here in just a few minutes, and that'll pretty well get rid of the situation there.
Right.
Oh, good.
So what about people that are living in, like say, like seniors particularly, living in assisted living or other facilities like that? Are they vulnerable, or how can they be targets? They are, and there's a lot of different ways. Obviously, we've talked about the telephone. We know no matter where you are, you're usually going to have access to that. But one of the other areas may be where a lot of these facilities are secured, where there's only at a certain time of day the doors lock, things like that. Usually there's no door-to-door soliciting, but what will happen eventually is people will piggyback on their way in, or they'll see a face when they're standing outside their building that just makes up an excuse why they need to get in the building. So for their own security, we ask them, try not to just let anybody in that you don't know. Make sure that you can verify that they belong in your building, because once they get in, that's when they're going to start doing some door knocking, and they're going to try to prey on that face-to-face interaction, and they'll give whatever reason, and sometimes they work in tandem. One person will be talking, distracting, and holding something up, while the other person sneaks around them, gets into the apartment or whatever, and starts looking around.
Looking for
I've actually personally known a neighbor that's happened to, and it's just disheartening to find out. And she didn't know until they were gone that happened. And I, thank God for that, because obviously if she had and confronted them about it, it might have ended badly. So just knowing that on the front end, if you can help secure your residence where you live, be it a assisted living complex or an apartment or whatever the case may be, that's super important too.
Wow. Are there some people that are just more at risk than others?
It's funny. They're very convincing nowadays, so I'll be honest with you. Obviously someone's a little lonelier, that if they can engage them in conversation, if they can they're friendly, and you don't want to use the word gullible, because that's, anybody can fall for it. We've had prominent business people call us about things that they felt like, I thought the one with the warrant out of town, Cheatham County had a traffic violation, and they're saying there's a warrant out for my arrest and I have to go down and pay, and they want it, of course they want it said electronically or whatever, but the reality is, I mean, it could happen to anyone.
Certain type of target, is there a target that these scammers are looking for? No, just the fast, quick cash or whatever. They're usually going to try to work quickly. They're again not wanting you to think about the decisions you're making. They're going to prey on either your kindness or your just vulnerability, and one or the other. They're going to get you one way or the other. But certainly, if they're asking you to send anything again electronically, or if they're asking you to buy gift cards, or again, that phone shouldn't ring. When the phone rings, people shouldn't be asking you for money. And I've heard stories. Anybody can be taken in, right? And sure.
So
an older lady was in a home improvement type store, like a Home Depot, Lowe's kind of place. And she was working on a project. And all of a sudden, this guy that's standing nearby hears her, and he starts telling her how he can help her and what he'll charge, and she winds up paying for a lot of this stuff up front and never sees this guy again, just because it was a nice guy. She needed help. She thought she was going to be helped, and she gets, it's terrible that if somebody says, if you start thinking, oh, it sounds too good to be true, well, it might really be, and back up and start thinking about hiring reputable, I mean, not just reputable, but people that you can verify, I guess.
Because it sounds like to me is that like when we were talking with Amber from the state of Tennessee, that prevention here is the key, because you're not going to get your money back. Yeah, unfortunately, most of these scams are not taking place domestically here in the United States. They're happening overseas or in another country somewhere, and they're doing this. And if you listen closely, you'll hear rumbling in the background, and that's the 30 other people sitting in the room scamming 29 other people or 30 other people. So it's one of those deals where if you'll just take your time and understand that, this is not something that we can
generally prosecute on, but we want to know about it. We want to know all the new ones. If something does happen, even if it sounds fishy and you got off the phone and you didn't give any money, great. Let us know about it. We'll do a report and we'll at least try to do some preliminary investigation.
Yeah, making yourself aware of what kind of scams are going on in your community might be a good way to say, start thinking about this could be one.
Absolutely, and there's just so many. They're very creative. If these people actually put their mind to good work, they could probably do incredible things, but unfortunately they just prey on folks. And
I wonder, I know you're here for Metro Community Affairs.
Yes.
I mean, do you visit like assisted livings and give them, give the residents and the facilities tips?
Yeah.
What are you telling them?
We do. We'll go out and have this very same conversation about building security, about telephones, about just watching after one another. If somebody doesn't seem right, then it probably isn't. And also about being cognizant of your surroundings when you're coming to in and out of the building, what's going on in the parking lots. You've got these beautiful glass windows. You can look out and see what's happening before you actually have to step out there. There's strength in numbers. If you are working together, walking together at least two vehicles, whatever the case may be, just to try to, your personal safety is so important, and that kind of all wraps around all of that. I think is so important and a good message. And then we do a lot of different things at Madison Precinct. We have a mobile prescription drug take-back program where we'll go to the assisted living communities in Madison twice a year and do a pickup. And I know you're going to be talking with 54 later. That's one of our stops, usually in Madison, that we'll do. So
great.
Well, we've got his contact information.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So I can't read that from here, but it's Metro Police Department in Nashville, 615-880-3547 would be a good number to call. Report your scams, or even if you don't think, even if you haven't been scammed, but you just think it's something's fishy that you guys need to know about and put on your radar screen.
Get on the phone and call Sergeant Henry Particelli.
Yes, sir.
All right.
For the Madison Precinct.
Yes.
So great.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks, it's my pleasure.
It's time for another break. And when we come back, we are going to be talking some more about scams, and we're going to have some more special guests. So stay tuned.